Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Sunday School Bonanza, or the Sunday School Prep, as Jeff demands that we call it.
Brought to you by This Week in Mormons. That's us.
Hey, we're just bringing things to you. Plates of cookies, Sunday School Prep.
Yeah. So you hear Sunday School Prep. Briefly, what we're doing is we realize that oftentimes we don't, as people, take the time to read, the lesson manuals or the.
I don't know anybody that does that's under 60.
We don't read those, even though we could. And so we figured that, not that this in any way replaces your scripture study or anything like that, we wanted to do a brief synopsis of this week's gospel doctrine lesson and see how it goes, to give you guys sort of a 10-minute or less, hopefully, sort of thing, an overview of the lesson, and give you something to think about so that you go in there on Sunday and are able to participate better, because our lessons are often lacking because people don't participate.
Right. All we're trying to do here is give you something so that you're hearing some of the material, some of the questions before you get there. And so if it's a good fit for you, if you can take 10 minutes during your week to do it, awesome. If not, then tell us, and we will never, ever fill this feed with this gibberish ever again.
Oh, and by the way, we're starting this week with lesson 20, and the only reason, just by our math, we figure you're either on that lesson this week or might be on the one before it. Please let us know if that's not the case. For those of you who listen to this, please let us know if it should be a different lesson or what have you. We're estimating here, so we want it to
I actually thought it was kind of like when a bishop asks you to give a talk on something, and it's because he suspects that you have a big problem with it. Jeff assigned me the lesson, Woe Unto You Hypocrites.
Yeah, well, Al, I mean, this is a time for you to redeem yourself based on your behavior on the podcast. So anyway, let's dive right in. This is a quick little thing.
Okay. So I'll give you a quick kind of reference story to kick it off. As a missionary, I had a great companion that we didn't get along at first. Of course, we all probably had this. He was awesome though. We one day we're sitting in the apartment doing our study and getting ready to leave, and as we were drawing closer, I start watching the clock, and I was the very kind of a by-the-book missionary in the get-go. And
sort of a letter of the law missionary.
Yeah, very letter of the law missionary, actually.
Sort of pharisaical, then.
Some might say. And so I'm looking at the clock, see the time's getting closer, and my companion goes in the back room, there, our bedroom, and I start making comments. I'm like, hey, Elder, we should probably get up and get ready to go. Then I go and I go to grab my tie, and he's sitting in the room shining his shoes. And I'm like, you piece of garbage. Elder, could we not do that on preparation day? Could you not, why do you have to do it 10 minutes before we're trying to leave? You're not going to be ready on time, blah, blah, blah. And so we were like 5 minutes late, and as the clock is ticking, I'm making comments like, hey, Elder, maybe if we weren't so apostate, we could have a little bit of success here. Or maybe if you weren't so concerned with how you look, we might be able to have a little bit of, a few blessings come our way. Or maybe blah, blah, blah. And I'm just doing this thing, right? So finally he comes in with the shoes, and he puts them down. He slips into them, and I've been sitting on the couch, and I stand up and walk very stoically over, and I stand there and shove my feet into my shoes. And he's just grinning like a Cheshire cat, and I'm like, I hope you're happy. You kill our whole flow of the morning, 10 minutes, just to shine your shoes. And he's just grinning. And so then I look down to go and tie my laces, and my shoes have been shined. And I look up at him, I was like, this guy, what a guy.
How did you feel in that moment?
Like a total and complete hypocrite.
Yeah.
It was, you feel like you're very quick to point the finger at everyone else, but when all of a sudden it's you that's the person, and you realize that it's you, there is no finer dose of chagrin.
Yeah. So hypocrisy covers many bases, and I think this lesson goes to that point. So let's go through some of the sets of scriptures. Of course, in John 12, we're mostly in John and Matthew this week.
We're not going to read the scriptures for you people. You can read those yourselves.
But in John 12, 1 through 8, you have the story of Mary anointing Jesus' feet. Al, I think you and I were talking a bit about, you felt that there was some symbolism in that.
Yeah, the symbolism I see in this, so far as hypocrisy goes, is when you're washing somebody's feet, there's not a lot of room to feel like you're better than they are. This ordinance of washing the feet, it's something that we see even today in Doctrine and Covenants 88, verse 139.
Yeah.
Talks about the ordinance of washing the feet. It's part of the modern day church as well. From what I understand, the Quorum of the 12 Apostles still participates in this ordinance. And really the idea being that when you're down on your knees washing somebody's feet, there's no I'm better than you. There's no you're not, a good person. Like the hypocrisy that typically prevails in these social church circles goes away. So.
Absolutely. And it's funny, I had a similar story on my mission. The last interview with our mission president, my first one before he left, rather than interview or do anything or like tell you how much he just wore an apron and he polished your shoes. That was his entire final interview.
It's a great symbol to set people off with.
It was a great lesson. Here's this man whom I revered immensely, an incredibly righteous, good man. And he just goes down beneath all of us and says, basically that I am forever your servant, because that is the essence of the gospel, and I loved that about it.
The other aspect here is Judas criticized her for not selling the ointment as the spikenard.
It was expensive oil, and I think that's good foreshadowing. Obviously, Judas is clearly being the hypocrite here because Judas is griping about anything, and he would go on to.
Well, and how often do we see people in the church that like they see their bishop go and change his tires on a Sunday, or get a tire fix or something, and they go inactive, right? I mean, it's all that is hypocrisy, where you point out the one flaw in somebody else that you might decide is meaningful while overlooking all of your own.
It's true. I remember, Al, a recent Sunday when you had on your Facebook feed some sort of joke or your Twitter that you saw like bridesmaids, and it was a Sunday, and I was like, Al, what's going on here, buddy? You're going to see bridesmaids on the Sabbath? But and you were just joking. But
it's true. I just assumed it was a terrible movie.
Still hypocritical on my end, because what do I know? I do plenty of things wrong.
It's easy to point out that way. I mean, it is.
So we go to Matthew 21. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, this is Jesus making his triumphal entry into Jerusalem on what is this? Good Friday, right? Where he rides in on the donkey, or is that a different holiday?
No, not Good Friday. Good Friday is when Christ was actually crucified.
That would be a bad Friday, I would think.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those celebratory Friday weekend things.
Yeah, well, it's because he finally rode into Jerusalem.
The one. Passover.
riding on a donkey, which I think shows a great deal of humility. And of course, that was even prophesied as far back as Zechariah. If you go to Zechariah 9:9, talks about that.
Oh, yeah.
About Christ riding in. Also, briefly, I remember that's in Matthew 21. Also in Matthew 21, a couple of verses there. The section this quotes is 23 through 46, those verses. But really, it's only a handful of verses. I think it's like 26 through 29. The parable of the two brothers. I love this parable. Or the two sons, rather. There's a householder.
They were nice folks.
This is true. So there's a householder, a dad, and he tells one of his sons, hey, go work in the vineyard. This son refuses.
Go, my son.
Says no, and then he repents and says, okay, and he goes and does it after feeling badly. The same commandment goes to the next son, who says, sure, I'll go do that, and he never does it. So who do we think is the better person? Well, I don't want to say who's the better person that's judging, but you know what I mean?
Jesus says the first one.
Jesus says the first one, because the first one owned up to his mistake and pressed on. He wasn't trying to go for any sort of outwardly showing of righteousness or obedience while just completely ignoring it when he was on his own. And I think there's a very potent lesson in that for all of us.
I think every bishop prays to have more of the first son.
Yeah, it's true, because
in every ward.
Because it doesn't matter who we were; it matters who we are. And I think that's one of the most valuable things in the gospel.
The other parable that it mentions is the parable of the householder, which I wasn't entirely sure how that connected to hypocrisy at first. So the parable of the householder is there was a householder who built a vineyard, put the winepress in it, did all the work, and then he lent it out to husbandmen to take care of and work. And then when harvest time comes, he sends his servants down there to get the fruit, and the husbandmen kill the servants. And then he sends more servants, and they kill those, treat them the same. And then he sends his son, saying, surely they'll reverence my son, and they kill the son. It's a great kind of parable on the atonement that we see. But I wasn't sure how it related to hypocrisy. But there's a question in the lesson that asks, how are the Jewish religious leaders like the husbandmen? Kind of how, like, where they kind of took this assumptive position of, well, we're here, even though we don't own this, we are, we're going to take it and treat it as though it were our own and not give you any of the fruits of it, and not reverence the people that you send to take care of it. So the idea being like tithing, right?
Yeah.
We look at everything around us. None of it is ours per se. We're stewards. And so tithing or time when we're asked to go and serve, maybe in the temple or as missionaries, It's absolute hypocrisy when we would get that call and refuse it because of whatever reason. So you got that going.
I like it. So that's about it. You have in Matthew 22 and 23. 22, of course, is when the scribes and Pharisees try to trap Jesus into saying something that will allow them to discredit him. So definitely go and read that. And in Matthew 23, Jesus condemns the scribes and the Pharisees. And I think that's one of the greatest examples of hypocrisy, of course, comes from the Pharisees, because they were all about preaching this letter of the law without any sort of commitment to live it themselves.
Well, this gives a great kind of gamut of hypocrisy that we can feel, right? From Mary washing the feet of Jesus to kind of the hypocrisy we'd feel in elevating ourselves in a class status, to Jesus riding in on a donkey, of like actual possessions maybe, or our hypocrisy supplanting our message and how we can avoid that, to the two parables and actually understanding that things that we own aren't ours, as well as being forthcoming with our commitments is a way to avoid hypocrisy.
Absolutely. I think, and for me, what I took from this is, I think one of the most dangerous things that we get into in the church is focusing on outward appearances of righteousness while not worrying about the interior. And what's even more frustrating is there are those of us who we condemn the people who even focus on the outward appearance rather than work with them. We can even feel elitist and be hypocritical if we feel that we don't focus on that, but we're so good. It's just a very dangerous place, and I think one of the most important things that we can do as Latter-day Saints.
So we
focus on the inside.
Sorry, Jeff, I cut you off there, but we hope that you guys will take this and that it stirs something up in you, gives you some ideas, lets you think about the questions.
Absolutely.
Again, if you like it, leave us a comment. We'll keep doing them. If not, we'll just let it go away. But also leave a comment if you hate it and this is worthless and a waste of your time. But hopefully it's a good 10 minutes for you.
Either way, we would really like comments about it. And of course, if you really love these and want to hear them for other classes, we're open to whatever there's demand for. We're fine with.
With love.
So
Email us, contact at This Week in Mormons. Come leave a comment at thisweekinmormons.com. We'll talk later.
Or even send us a tweet at The Real Twin. We'll do whatever you like to do. And so thanks for this little snippet, everybody. And please remember, your actual Sunday school experiences can vary, and we are not responsible for what your teacher decides to do. We're just looking at the lesson itself.
All right. See you, Jeff.
All right. Thanks, Al. And hope you enjoyed this, everybody. This has been, of course, Sunday School Bonanza Prep by This Week in Mormons. We'll see you later.